Did you start? Okay. Hi, and welcome to our backyard. Samara and I are going to talk about composting today, something that we've been experimenting with for what, 4 or 5 months? Anyway, we've made a lot of mistakes, which is a good thing because we can tell you what we've learned. What we do know is to make a really good compost pile, you need the right balance of 4 different things. Right, Sammy Sam? 2 different types of waste. Can you help me with that? What color? Green waste and brown waste. Green waste, which is full of nitrogen, and brown waste, which is full of carbon. And then you want a good balance of water and air. So what's green waste? While we're here, let's talk about green waste for a while. Broccoli. Lots of stuff that you find in your kitchen. You can use vegetables and you can use fruit, right, Samara? What's this?
Yeah.
Banana peels, and we've got melon peels. We actually love
and
this is
carrot.
a carrot top. I think that might, yeah. And then here we've got really great coffee grounds from Dad's espresso in the morning. A little bit of fruit salad left over. This is really great. Eggshells, but we can't use the inside of the egg. And why is that, Samara? What can't we put in the compost? We don't want any animal, right?
Boo.
Really, no animal products. So that means no meat, not the inside of the egg, and no milk products. Now when you find these eggshells, you want to crush them up because really things will decompose much better if they're in small pieces. For instance, you can put this whole sweet potato that's started to sprout right in your compost pile. But if you put it in like this, it'll probably look like this in about 3 or 4 weeks. But if you chop it up in tiny little pieces, sort of like this, it'll decompose that much easier. Okay, so this is the green waste, and we keep this big container on a shelf right above our sink with a nice tight fitting lid, right, Sammy Sam? Because it can smell and the flies can get to it. And when it gets full, we run out and dump it on the compost pile. Now there's stuff that's green material outside in your yard as well. What can we use from our yard? What's this, Samara? Grass. Grass is really, really rich in nitrogen. The thing you want to watch out about grass is when it's freshly cut, it can be very wet. And if you throw it into your compost pile all wet like this, it can clump together and get very soggy, and your compost pile may get very wet. You want your compost pile to be the consistency of a wrung out sponge. So what we do is one of 2 things. We either take our grass and we mix it with some dried leaves and then put it in, or we let our grass, and you can see we're doing this right over here, we put our grass in a big sort of barrel and we let the sun dry it out a little bit, and when it gets to be the consistency of straw, it's the perfect time to stick it in your compost pile. Okay, so that's green. What about brown? What do we have here? Brown waste? Newspaper, black and white, no color. You do not want that ink in there. The color ink and glossy paper is not good for your compost pile. You can do cardboard and paper bags, all that from the inside. Feel free to put that in your compost pile. Then outside, you've got all sorts of wonderful stuff too. You can put dried leaves or dried clippings from your trees, right, Sammy? But again, don't do what we did. We just threw it all in the compost pile and it sat there. Nothing was happening. And someone said to me, why don't you take it out and chop it up? I bet you it'll decompose better. And they were right. So we chop things up by hand with this tiny little cutter. While Samara's running around in the backyard, I chop things up, which I'm not going to lie, can be very time consuming. If you've got a neighbor like mine who happens to have a mulcher, you can take some of your brown waste and you can chop it up into tiny little bits. Now, to do this, we have to put on protective goggles or sunglasses, glasses. And it's a little loud, so you might want to turn down your sound or plug your ears. But watch what you can do. All right, you can take a thing like this, which I spend hours going click, 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 click to, and voila, watch this. Ready? Hold your ears. I'm not going to lie. All right. So it's a little noisy, but I'm telling you, it saves a lot of time and it makes for really, really nice brown waste. So that's the brown waste, that's the green waste. The other two elements are air and water, which we're going to talk about in a second. We thought it might be really fun to make sort of a compost salad, a mini version of what we've got going on back there in our composter, to kind of explain to you exactly how to do this. All right, Samara, I'm going to need your help. We're going to cook the compost pile right now. So we like to start our compost with a good base of all the materials. So we need a little green. Can you put some green in? Now you don't really have to use measuring cups. We're just having fun. Green waste and a little bit of dirt. We like to start with a little dirt too. Stick that in. And then some dried leaves, some nice brown waste. Delicious. Now Samara, would you help me up and toss that salad for me, please? Let's toss. Nice. Now if you get a nice base of things going, that starts your compost pile off on the right foot, so to speak. Okay, there's our base. Now, here we are in the kitchen. Our compost, our green material is full. Samara goes out, puts it on the compost pile. There's a little green waste. So now we want to cover it with a little brown waste. Wait, hang on a second. So we put some brown waste on it. We'll use some newspaper this time. Put a little brown waste on, enough to keep the flies from getting at it. And here's where the water comes in handy, okay? In our compost pile, we find that things get really dry. And it may be because we live in Southern California and we've had a very dry, hot summer. Who knows? We always add a little bit of water. Not soaking it, but kind of like the dew on the morning grass. So let's add a little water. We spray it down a little bit. Just get things nice and moist. And there you go. Doesn't that look delicious? And then what you're going to do is you're going to continue to add green waste, then brown waste, green waste, then brown waste, as you create it, adding a little bit water if you need it. And soon, you're going to have an active compost pile. Now, it's not an exact science, so if things get too dry, you're going to need to add a little bit of water. And if things get too wet, you're going to have to add a little bit of brown material. Something else that can happen in a compost pile is that your material can get very compact. And when that happens, it can start to smell. And that happens because oxygen can't get in to feed the bacteria that's needed to decompose all of your material. And your pile goes what's called anaerobic. The bacteria that doesn't need any oxygen gets in there and starts to take over. And they're a little smelly, aren't they, Sammy Sam? A little bit like rotten eggs. So the thing to do then is to get in there with your salad tongs or pitchfork and toss your pile a little bit, you know, help it breathe. Now some people turn the whole thing over. We haven't had as good luck with that as we have just lifting it up and letting it breathe, getting the air in there. And that, combined with maybe a little bit more brown material, should keep your pile from smelling. A good compost pile really shouldn't smell, and again, should be the consistency of a wrung out sponge. So that's about it, right, Sammy? That's about it. That's all you really need to know to compost. And if you don't have a backyard, don't worry. You can compost at home in a much smaller bucket that you can stick under your sink, called a worm bin, or out on your porch. And Annie talks about that in her blog, doesn't she? And we also give you a much more detailed version of it in our Eco-Family Challenge section. So we encourage you all to join us. We've had such a good time composting because we love to see that a lot of the waste that we're creating at home, we're actually recycling and putting it back in the yard. And it's so great for our plants. All this stuff decomposes down to this brown, crumbly dirt called humus. I also want to say hummus. Humus. And that is better than any kind of fertilizer you can buy in any garden store. In addition to the fact that if you put it back into your own yard, you're not going to make big trucks come, pick up your waste, haul it long distances, and throw it into a dump that's already teeming with garbage. So you'll save the environment and use all those banana peels, right, Sammy Sam? You have anything you want to say? You want to say goodbye? No, she's being shy. So please, I hope we've presented you with some things that might encourage you to compost in your life, or tell a neighbor to do the same. Bye.